Hello, welcome back to the news. Now, plans to revise the country's energy policies to benefit the people are fully on course and will soon be ready. This review has been necessary for the country to increase its benefits from the petroleum sector. Minister of Energy John Peter Mewu was speaking at the opening of the 11th International Upstream Forum in Accra. Ebenezer Sabote's report read to you.
The country's energy policies have not seen much review in more than a decade since they were established. The review process, which is ongoing, is expected to have an accelerated upstream petroleum roadmap and a strong regulatory regime to, among others, meet international standards. According to Minister of Energy Peter Mewu, this will ensure the nation gets the best results from the energy sector.
Hydrocarbon activities, as you know, it's a dynamic activity. And changes in economic conditions and prices of hydrocarbons determine the policy directions of a country that want to achieve a sustainable development. We in Ghana evaluate our potentials economic discovery program and therefore adjust our policies from time to time to make sure that we are able to bring in competent players into the sector.
The forum, which presents a platform for all players to share ideas, is being hosted in Ghana for the first time. Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia noted that government will undertake measures to strengthen the Petroleum Commission in supervising the activities of the industry.
Improving efficiency and existing development and production arrangements, including through strengthening the regulator to conduct its own independent studies for improving production and recovery rates, and empowering the National Oil Company to establish requisite standby capability for operations. The strategy also includes promoting minimal own investments for aggressive exploration, including closing critical data gaps, establishing minimum infrastructure to catalyze local content development, promoting accelerated capacity development to equip the youth with the relevant technical and vocational skills in line with industry standards.
The program is being hosted by the Petroleum Commission of Ghana. Ebenezer Sabotis reports for Joy Business.
Now, the Finance Ministry has rejected reports that its historic 20-year bond was a flop because it failed to secure the amount targeted. This was contained in a statement issued by the ministry earlier today. There's more in this report.
The ministry in a statement maintained that there is no way that the 20-year bond can be described as a flop. This is because the whole bond was structured in a way that more issuance would be done subsequently to reach the targeted amount of 450 million cedis. This is because, looking at the current market conditions and limited appetite for longer-dated bonds, there was no way that the issue would have been restricted to a targeted amount. They insisted that it was also not undersubscribed, but rather it was fairly priced and provided an important information in lengthening the borrowing yield curve. The Finance Ministry argues that this strategy of raising funds in tranches was captured in its 2019 borrowing plan and medium-term strategy. The bond sale is also part of a strategy to move away from short-dated papers and borrowing at cheaper rates to finance very expensive papers.
Well, let's have a conversation around this. Economist with Data Bank, Karit Mate, is on the line to help us understand the issue. So where do you stand, really, Karit, when it comes to whether or not this bond issue was a flop?
I completely reject that assertion that it was a flop. And I'll give you a couple of reasons. Now, what was the objective of this transaction? And that is one of the perspectives from which we should come. The objective was to try and bring in a longer-dated security, which hitherto wasn't on our market. Now, when you do that, what you are doing is that you are lengthening the maturity profile of government debt portfolio. Now, you are doing that within the context of trying to achieve the least possible cost. Now, if you do that, you want to focus more on lowering the cost of the debt, then you should also take cognizance of the fact that you must not focus heavily on how much you raise. Now, that then informed the objective to say, okay, this transaction will be done as a shelf registration, which means that I am introducing this security on the market for now, raise a certain amount of money, then I will come back subsequently to raise additional funds. I'll give you a classic example. Until 2016, we didn't have a 10-year bond on our market. In November 2016, we issued a 10-year bond. At the initial transaction, 400 million cedis was raised. Today, that particular 10-year bond has been reopened several times and additional funds have been raised on the same security. And the amount outstanding on that particular 10-year bond today is over 7 billion cedis from an initial transaction of 400 million cedis. So the objective of doing a shelf registration initially so that subsequently you reopen the security for additional funds should be the priority and the consideration. And if that is it, we say it has been successful. We have achieved the longest tenor on the domestic market, which is a 20-year tenor. And then we have also achieved that at a competitive rate because a month before now, the government issued a 15-year bond at 20%. Then 1 month down the line, they are issuing a 20-year bond at 20.2%, just 20 basis points or 0.2% premium for 5 years, for 5 additional years. So essentially, I will reject completely any assertion that it was a failure.
Okay, I'm sure that what you're referring to is the strategy that the Ministry of Finance seeks to explain in the statement that they released. But how effective is this really?
I mean, it is practiced everywhere else in the world. So I use the case of Ghana with the November 2026 10-year bond. If you go to Nigeria, for instance, the federal government of Nigeria Naira bond has 3 outstanding securities, one maturing in 2023, one maturing in 2029, and another maturing in 2049. The 2049 means it's a 30-year bond because it was issued this year. Now, they subsequently come onto the market to tap these securities. And when they tap, the size increases and it increases liquidity on the market. And it helps deepen the capital market for even corporates to issue bonds based on the pricing of these treasury securities.
So let's talk about future. I mean, this kind of news doesn't bode well, in fact, when it comes to investments, because investors are really watching what people say and what this kind of reportage means for them when it comes to investing. So going forward, how should we tackle this?
Well, I think one of the first move or strategy is what the ministry is adopting by issuing a counter statements or rejoinder to correct some technical and factual inaccuracies. And secondly, I think investor education is also very important so that investors try to read between the line and move between the sharp. Then also financial journalism also has got to improve because it is not just about looking at the headline numbers. We need to drill down to look at some of the details like real returns, like spreads, and so on. And I think a lot of our financial journalists will also have to improve or sharpen our analytical skills in that regard so that we can really hit the substance of the issues and not just the headline issues.
Thanks for your perspective tonight. You heard Courage Mate, he's economist with Data Bank. We appreciate your time. Now, work is steadily progressing on 4 warehouses under construction in the Ashanti region for food storage to address post-harvest losses. Grains and cereals are the focus of the initiative under the Infrastructure for Poverty Eradication Program. Government says it is investing its $1 million per constituency program into the facilities, expected to become operational next year. Nai Ojima joined officials of the Regional Coordinating Council on a visit to the sites and filed this report.
Per municipality as well as Seche Central and Seche Dumasi districts are leading producers of grains and cereals in Ashanti region. In spite of this, farmers remain relatively poor because they cannot store their produce to attract higher prices. District Chief Executive of Seche Dumasi, Salisu Bamba, says it is the reason for high levels of poverty among farmers.
If you come to this municipality during this period, July, August, thereabouts, most farmers normally sell their farm produce Not because they want to sell, but because they don't have place to store the produce. That's one. The other thing is they also sell it at cheaper prices because of the rains. So market men and women come and they take it as they want.
The traditional drying of grains and cereals in the sun has failed to achieve required results. 2 storage facilities of 1,000-ton capacity each are being constructed at Ejura. Work on the 2 is about 75% complete, while others at Asante Mampon and Isuta are at early stages of construction. 3 of these projects are being executed with fire-proof materials, but the 4th will have fire control mechanisms installed. Site engineer on the Ejura project, Emmanuel Kofijan, explains how the facility will operate.
The one that I know is the dryer, but subsequently there will be things that will be coming in the laboratory because they'll be testing and all that, and those ones will be coming from the consultants.
Such a Central District Assembly believes the project will improve the lives of people. Kwadwo Banahini Bediako is chief executive.
We are the leading producer of maize in the Ashanti region, and then we will have to store. We have to know how it's dry so that poultry farmers can have it. So it's in line with government policy, and I think that we want to express our appreciation to the government.
Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei-Mensah is optimistic food security will be improved when the storage facilities become operational.
With this, it's going to complement the efforts or the work in the area of planting for food and jobs, and also planting for export and rural development. Because if we have successful planting of food and job policy, then the maize and then the various cereals and grains that will be obtained could be dried in this warehouse, and it could be stored for a long time, either for future use or for exports. This will also ensure food security in the country.
In other news, New York University Center for Technology and Economic Development is spearheading an initiative to reduce post-harvest losses for improved farmer welfare in Ghana. A pilot program to introduce farmers to modern technology and practices is currently ongoing in the Setre Kumewu district of the Ashanti region. Locally based farmer services organization Africa House Conference is partnering the U.S. University in the initiative, and Asensu Mensah has more in this report.
Statistics have shown that at least 30% of farm produce, estimated at 700,000, is lost annually through post-harvest losses. This tends to make farming unattractive and hinders efforts at ensuring food security in the country. New York University Center for Technology and Economic Development, CTED, initiative will match farmers and buyers to ensure ready market for economic empowerment. The move is geared towards reducing post-harvest losses, a situation which reduces incomes of farmers. Professor Yao Nyakon is director.
Farmers, we've piloted our apps with many farmers, and so our apps do a number of things. One of the things, you're holding the app, you walk around your farm and you'll be able to get a picture of your farm, a map of your farm, acreage of your farm. So farmers like this, and we are interacting with farmers. We can actually get the farmers to use these apps and to do something with it and to scale up their businesses. I'm a researcher, so my primary job is looking at the impacts of these. So, I mean, all of this is a big gamble, but if we're successful, the goal is to see many rich farmers expanding their activities, planting different types of crops. Even if they're particularly planting a particular crop like maize, higher quality, so they're getting more money out of it. If we can get consistent supply, then the firms, the companies will be able to say, oh, now we have consistent supplies. I feel sure I can create an industry, a factory, an agro-processor, and I'll be assured of deliveries of goods, and so I can industrialize. One of the biggest problems of industrialization is lack of steady, consistent supply from the farmers.
Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry, Ahomeka Lindsay, encouraged the farmers to adjust themselves to the new paradigm of agricultural technology and processing for development.
Do you know that we were using the same variety of cane sugar that has been used since 1957? Now, that is not going to work. We have a tomato factory called Palugu. I'm sure some of you have heard it. And you all know that they say our tomatoes are too small, but the ones from Burkina is bigger. You cannot run a tomato factory on our variety of tomato. Now, these are things that are formed from technology, and that's why the role of academia, for me, is important. Academia and industry becomes critical.
Nana Asensumensa reporting.
She is one of the most celebrated women entrepreneurs in the country, and her journey started 26 years ago when she decided to commercialize and distribute the hot black pepper sauce, Shito being the first to do so. Chief Executive of Samba Foods, Letitia Benua-Osafo-Addo, shares her experiences with us on today's edition of the Joy Business Van. In 1993, Letitia Benua-Osafo-Addo, then a specialist nurse, felt a strong urge to explore the entrepreneurial competencies in her. She discovered a need.
You know, up until 1993, when we started the production and distribution of Shito, there was no ready-made Ghanaian Shito on the market where you just go pick a jar. All Shitos were being produced by various peoples in their own homes. But then for someone to think about producing it in commercial quantities, no one was doing that. And that was the market niche, or the gap that we saw and we set up to, capture it.
Shito, the hot black pepper sauce, is used with a variety of Ghanaian dishes. It is a must-have for especially students in the boarding school. So it was a good business move, and being the first to commercialize on a large scale was even better. But Letitia had to start from somewhere.
I first made 10 jars of Shito, distributed it to friends to actually taste and evaluate and give their genuine comments. And they were all very encouraging. So they had to pay for it anyway, the 10 jars. Then we produced 20 jars for the then Kingsway stores in Accra. And I took it on a Thursday. By Saturday, it was finished.
10 bottles, 20 bottles, and she couldn't keep up anymore. At this time, production was done manually in her kitchen, and Letitia had to keep up with increasing demand. She had to re-strategize and had to automate production. That she did with some funding support. But at a point in the life of the company, the huge investments were starting to have a toll. Growth was slowing, and Samba Foods was yet to break even. What's worse, a joint venture failed, and the banks wouldn't budge either.
It was an experience that I would never wish my worst enemy to have. When you are doing well with the bank, they are always with you, they are very cooperative. But when you get a hiccup, instead of finding appropriate solutions to solve, and not only me, but SMEs, finding appropriate solutions to the problems and moving forward with you, they just make sure you cave in.
But Letitia would not give in just yet. Soon, she would get the breakthrough she needed.
After the failed joint venture, we were lucky to get money from the Venture Capital Fund to expand. And it was at the same time that Yams Restaurants, that is KFC, was in the country looking for people or a company to produce for their KFC restaurants. And when you mention Shito, they connote Samba, they came here. So they took us through the food safety systems that we needed to put in place to pass their external auditing regime, to be able to supply them with the Shito.
Samba Foods had now included peanut butter and juices to its production. In 2015, it became the first indigenous company to list on the Ghana Alternative Market, operated by the Ghana Stock Exchange. Her contribution to industry in Ghana has been recognized by the state. Former President, the late Professor Evans Atta Mills, conferred on her the state honor, Member of the Order of the Volta, for her invaluable contribution to the local industry in the category of food processing. But that is just one of several recognitions.
The one that I really cherish is the one, about 3 of them. The state one, that is Member of the Order of the Volta, that was presented to me by the late President, Professor Evans Atta Mills. I was the Marketing Woman of the Year 2000. You know, it's one of the coveted awards that you can get. And to crown it all was an award by Smega.
Oh, she was referring to the SME Ghana Awards organized by Imaginate Company Limited. Aside from supplying international food chain KFC with Shito, 20% of Samba Foods products are for the export market. I mean, you've seen it all, you've done it all within this past 2 decades. What's the future like for your business, Samba Foods? What do you hope to do next from all that you've accomplished so far?
Yeah, our ultimate objective, the mission that we set ourselves to achieve, is to have a food processing emporium. We'll be building a modern state-of-the-art food processing facility that will encompass all aspects of food processing. It's going to be an academy added to that to train, you know, other young people in food processing and preservation. And then again, to fortify our stable foods with minerals, vitamins, and other substances to fight micronutrient deficiency syndrome in children, pregnant women, and lactating women. This we have started. We have produced the first, you know, fortified shito in collaboration with GIZ, and this is what we want to replicate to take care of these micro-malnutrition in Ghana and then the sub-region. And once we've achieved that, then I can sit down and rest and grow on pension.
Till then, it is more hard work. The very industrious woman behind us, Samba Foods, very remarkable there. Well, before we go, local rice farmers are to get more ready markets as the Ghana Commodity Exchange adds rice to the list of commodities traded on the exchange. This follows the signing of an MOU between the Ghana Commodity Exchange, the John Kufuor Foundation, and the Ghana Rice Interprofessional Body for commencement of trading on the commodity trading platform. This is part of efforts to develop rice farming in Ghana. There's more in this report.
Launched in November 2018, the Ghana Commodity Exchange was set up to provide a regulated market for some food commodities by linking sellers to buyers on a common trading platform. Currently, 2 commodities, maize and soya beans, are traded on the exchange. However, following the signing of an MOU by the exchange, the John Kufuor Foundation and the Ghana Rice Interprofessional Body, rice has been added to the list of trading commodities. Dr. Kadri Alpha is the CEO of the exchange.
We are trying to list rice on the exchange. There's so many challenges that the rice industry is facing. So it's not just about us just listing rice. We also have to look at the value chains. We have to look at those who are producing the rice and some of the challenges they are facing. And I mean, typically some of them is poor quality. I mean, they have high post-harvest losses. They also have problems with getting markets. They have problems with access to financing. They don't have sufficient information to negotiate better prices. And so if we want to successfully trade rice and to get the farmers to get better income, then we need to work with them. We have to develop a structured trading system to work with them to address the challenges. So that's what the exchange is all about.
CEO for the John Kufuor Foundation, Professor Bafo Ajimandua, explained the initiative will be a big step in creating ready markets for local rice producers.
where else can we upgrade the marketing of our local rice? Because through this arrangement, we are going to ensure standards in our rice production. We are going to ensure packaging. And the best of all, farmers are going to get fair price for their produce. So this arrangement is going to elevate the marketing of Ghana rice to a completely new level. As we said earlier, the commodity exchange, they have warehouses. So now through this arrangement, farmers can store their produce and wait for the best time to sell. We will minimize post-harvest losses because there's now storage for them. And the best of all, when their produce is stored, it can be used as collateral backed by the commodity exchange to secure loans for their work.
Some rice farmers present at the event also noted that access to ready markets will go a long way to ensure better pricing for their commodity as well as lower the price of rice for consumers.
The number of farmers who have actually gone into rice and the areas in which they've gone into rice will far exceed expectations beyond our means. So that's the volume side, the supply side. With the pricing, of course, it's just simple supply and demand. The more supply you have, the more you'll be able to manage the price. And eventually, that rice should come onto the market for consumers in the domestic arena to be able to get cheaper rice on the market to buy.
This is going to coordinate and bring all of us together, along the value chain, so that we'll be able to get a real value of what we are doing and be able to also bring it to the fore. This is what makes it interesting for us to be part of the commodity exchange program.
For Joy Business, Sheila Tamaklo reporting.
And that's Business Live tonight. Thanks for watching. My name is Daryl Carr. See you same time tomorrow.